Well, welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor, and I'm joined today by David Marshall. Now, let me just give you a little bit of background into Dave. I've actually had the privilege of knowing David my son's just turned 23 today, so it's about 21 years. So we should probably have our own celebration, Dave. But David has a 25-year track record of innovation in the area of B2B sales and sales technology. He is based in Melbourne and has successfully launched multiple software companies, including Performio, a global leader in sales commissions management. David's latest venture is SalesGRID, an artificial intelligence-powered sales productivity tool that helps salespeople to be awesome on large, complex deals. And David's company is leading the way with research and development in the application of AI for sales teams. So this is going to be a great conversation. He can help dispel the myths and the hype around AI and focus us on the immediate and longer-term gains to be won by sales leaders in this evolving space. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Ingrid. Pleasure to be back on here. And yes, it is 21 years. Yeah, I was just looking up my calendar the other day. Unbelievable. But here we are.
It is. Look, you should be looking at a calendar and marking off the days and saying, God, is that how long I've known her? Gee whiz. But look, you've had a series of startups, and I think every single one because I met you with one of your first startups, which was incredible, going back all those years, and they've all been in the sales performance enablement space. So I'm just wondering, so that we kind of get a sense of the progression of your entrepreneurial career, if you can walk us through your journey with each of those companies that you've started and sold so far. And as you're going through, if you can share with us some of the key lessons and insights that you've gained from an entrepreneurial perspective.
Sure. Yeah, I guess, if we can really go back away to the 90s, dare I say, back to that previous century. I actually had a couple of sort of small micro businesses, if you like, which, were the precursor of before I got into the whole B2B sales space. But, I guess the thing about that was, although they weren't wildly successful businesses, it was sort of my foray into becoming an entrepreneur, or before that, and so that sort of teaches you a couple of things around the resilience you need to go out on your own and create something, and just that whole thing of actually creating something new that actually has an impact, well, for good or bad, but hopefully for good. So I just loved that aspect of it, and then so the journey I've been on. I was working at one of the big telcos back in the late 90s at Optus, and was lucky enough to get involved in the whole B2B sales incentive space, and I really enjoyed that. And so the first part of my journey was to actually then resign, foolishly, and start my own business, which was Blitz Incentives, which is when I met yourself, good self, because of course, you were a guru at helping with business development, and you helped me bring on some key clients in that business. And built business teams. I ran that for 4 years. In terms of key learnings, insights, for any budding entrepreneurs out there, I'd say one of the key things was I would have made a lot more money if I'd just stayed at Optus. So the first, it was, but on the other hand, I loved the excitement of going out on my own and actually building incentive programs for big companies, and just that thing of actually you've got complete control over what you're doing for good and bad. And so that was exciting. And so we built a nice little business there, and I then sold that business to effectively a marketing agency, well, almost like a competitor actually, and went to work with them for the next few years. And, so that was a really good move, because it gave me a bit more, I had a young family I was raising, obviously. And so it was good to sort of go back into a bit more on the corporate side, but still working in a smaller company. And we actually started building out Performio in that business, which I then, in 2009, did a kind of an equity swap with the owners there, who stayed on as owners in Performio, and I spent the next 10 years building out Performio. So I guess, in terms of what learning or insights, I think probably the key insight would be that it takes a long time to actually build something valuable. It doesn't happen overnight. I think we tend to always, when I say we, I mean me, I'm using the royal plural, but you tend to overestimate what you can achieve in a year. You think, you have these fancy plans, what you're going to do in a year, but typically it takes years to really build things. You might get lucky and get success in your first year, but it still takes a long time to really build up something solid. And funnily enough, over that 10 years, I'd say, we must have had 40, 50 board meetings in that time. I would say most of them were not incredibly positive. It was only towards the end that we really got a head of steam up. And, I was lucky enough to have a successful exit at that point, but still stayed on in the business for a couple more years with Performio. But another thing is, that actually journey started back at Optus, actually, the whole business of trying to calculate sales commissions and incentives for people. So it was actually took 10 years to get to the point of really launching it, another 10 years to really get it kicking into action, both here in Australia and the US. So anyway, so it's a bit of a journey.
But I want to ask you about that because there was a point that you came to, and I know you've just mentioned the US there, but that was the bit that really impressed me because there was a lot of personal sacrifice that you decided was, and knowing you, like I have come to over the years, you are an incredibly considered person, and so everything that you do, from my experience of you, is weighed up. And there was a decision made to actually relocate yourself over in the States in order to give it the greatest level of traction and success when it came to building it into a truly global business, so that it was ready for sale. Do you feel comfortable talking a little bit about that decision, which must have been very difficult because you left your beautiful wife Dee and those beautiful 3 children here for most of the time, for a few years, and then what that struggle must have been like on your own, the long days, probably the longer nights, just really toiling it out, doing what it took in order to get it to where you successfully got it to.
Yeah, well, I mean, without being flippant, when you're on your own and on the other side of the planet, you can always focus on something you're not having to deal with all the kids, right? So I'm not sure if Dee's going to listen to this, but it was the obvious thing to do. Like, the market in the US is obviously huge, particularly for what we were doing relative to Australia. So, from 2013, for about 3 or 4 years, I weighed up that decision. And, part of the plan was to actually bring the family over, but it was just proved to be too difficult given the age we're at. And so what I had to do was, I couldn't just go over there and spend the whole time there. I was flying back and forth. I think I did about 30 trips. That's 60 flights between, from early 2017 to up to mid 2019, and even before that, I was doing a lot of trips to the US. But that's what you got to do. And I think if you're going to build a business, you need to be pretty singly focused on that. People talk about work-life balance and all that stuff, right? At the end of the day, there's just life, right? So you've got to decide what you're going to do with your life. So I made a decision that, there was going to be a sacrifice. It wasn't easy. It was a bit tough from a family point of view, but I wasn't going to do it forever there either. So we tried to put a bit of a time limit on it, and that's what we did.
I just love how you kind of skim over a lot of that stuff, because I can't imagine the difficulty when you finally made that decision. You're now boots on the ground, and you're very real about, there's no such thing really as work-life balance when you're really trying to grow something and you're trying to get it to a certain point by a certain time frame. What I want to ask you about was, how on earth does an Australian man who's got this business, and I know you had some contacts there, but then start to really, get real traction in a totally different country to the point where you took Performio by the end?
Yeah, it's how on earth. It took, funnily enough, I landed there in January 2017. I actually spent pretty much the first 6 months there. I think I flew back here once to see Dean, the kids. And you know what? In the first 6 months, didn't actually achieve much at all. It took a long time just to get all the legals and the corporate stuff set up. But even we weren't getting a lot of traction. It wasn't until later that year. I remember having moments in the office there in LA where I was just going, had my head in my hands at 10 o'clock at night going, we just can't break through here. And this is a funny thing about business. One thing I had been toying with was that we needed to rebrand. We're actually called Performance Center. And for about a year I wanted to rebrand, but I was kind of thinking, it's kind of trivial. There's more to it than just a name. But in the end we said, okay, let's just do this. And that actually made the difference. It was just a snappier brand that got a bit more cut through. And and we just took off from there. How did we do it? Well, you just through good old-fashioned outbound effort, but also working really hard on the few customers that we had over there.
Right.
And I think that's a key. If anything, you can get too focused on the sales front. It's always that balance, right? How much time do I put in on the delivery versus on the sales as a leader in the business? And you can get overly focused on the sales, which is probably odd saying this on a sales podcast, but you get by obviously focusing on the value creating for your hard-won, small but hopefully growing customer base, that can then generate real momentum, and not just obviously maybe through referrals, but just through conviction and confidence. I think is really important.
Yes, this is where I think you're really onto something, where this now crosses over into sales land, because as an entrepreneur who's growing a business, you're ultimately, the sales strategist for that business, and often you're the sales person who's doing all of the execution in the early days until you get to a point where you can then start to staff that out and man that out with people who know what they're doing. But that conviction and confidence that you've just talked about there, that comes from knowing your worth as a business, knowing the value that you're bringing, because you're in there and you've got those deep relationships with your clients, and you start to build out some of those stories, and that's where I think the leverage can be to take you from just a handful of businesses into speaking with that confidence and conviction through very real stories that other companies with similar types of problems or similar types of aspirations, that just rings true to them. Is that how it was for you?
Yeah, definitely. That you need that. You can't be selling in a theoretical sort of vacuum. You've got to have that confidence and conviction of that you are actually delivering for the customers, that you actually have the right to have these conversations. You have the right to reach out to people and say, you know what, you need to talk to me because what we're doing down the road is pretty cool. And, not just customers, you've got to be able to, when you're setting up in your office and you're recruiting people, you've got to be able to sell to the people you're trying to recruit as well.
Right.
And that's important. And look, that was another key thing. I was lucky enough to get my first 2 hires right. Hired a couple of really solid people that helped, and came in, really helped build up the business early. And that's another thing. Frankly, if I look back over my career, recruitment has not been a strong suit, so I was fortunate that I got those two. And to recruit people, particularly in the US, it's a confidence game. People are going to be confident that it's worth coming on the journey with you.
Yeah, I think that's the one area I'm asked about the most is about recruitment when it comes to salespeople. And I think some companies really think that there's got to be a secret formula. Surely, there's got to be some sort of silver bullet to getting that, that recruitment person, that whole process right. But also, what are we looking for here? So what were some of the qualities that you looked for in those people that told you that they were the right fit for Performio, for where it was at that stage in its development, and how you knew that they were going to be able to take you to the next level?
Yeah, I think I'm certainly looking for, in terms of resume fit, in terms of having worked in a smaller business. In fact, the person I recruited, she I think she just previously been at IBM, so that was kind of a red flag. But she'd previously had success in a smaller team. I think you've got to be very leery of hiring sales. If you're in a startup or a small business, probably the worst thing you can do is hire someone who's been allegedly successful at Salesforce or Oracle or whatever. Right? I think that's a huge mistake. But so you look for that sort of fit. Obviously, you look, like there's no recipe, right? But I try and probe for genuine enthusiasm for the role and for the business. It's like I say, salespeople are good at faking it, right? But you try and probe for that. You try and do, like I did do things. There's a tool I use called objective assessment, which put salespeople through some key questions. It actually did give you a pretty good profile about their real attitudes to, say, prospecting, where their strengths were deeper into the sales cycle and whatnot, which was just a helpful tool to just understand the person a bit better. And finally, I always tried to put people through some sort of role play where you actually just see how they go presenting. It was always not so much to see if they're good at presenting, but actually to see, are they fair income? Are they prepared to put in the time to prep for that role play? And so that they were good. But having said that, my God, there are no guarantees, right? It's just, and you've also you do have to also own it yourself. It's a two-way thing. You can't just say, I brought in this person, they failed. You've got to also think, where did I go wrong with that hire, or could we have supported them better? Funnily enough, with this person that I hired into the LA office, it wasn't going great in the first 4 or 5 months. There's sort of question marks. But again, that was partly because, we had the branding wrong. Once we got that branding right, that really helped click things into gear. So I think it's, you don't want to, you've got to be patient. And that's the thing, I reckon. One of the things I also look for in resumes is I'm very leery of people who've had roles where they've had 1 year here, even 1.5 years. People stretch it out on LinkedIn, right? These people that go job hopping. And because, it takes time. B2B sales, to be successful, it's bull dust really that someone can be successful in a year. It really takes 2-3 years to really start clicking into gear.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just the length of your sales cycle. It's really about the depth of knowledge that they have of their customer base, the market, the way that they say what they say, the level of sophistication that they start to grow into.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that I know that there are certain businesses that would have looked at that person and gone, well, 4 or 5 months in, God, we haven't got anywhere. And yet it was actually not necessarily just that person, not taking anything away from what they did or didn't do, but it was something as simple as just looking at all of the different factors that came into play, and it was the branding as well that made her getting traction that much easier.
That's right.
Okay, so then we'll kind of leapfrog into the fact that you then successfully sold that business. It's amazing. And again, that's that's sales on steroids, selling a company.
That's a whole, I don't know if I love talking about this topic, so you'll have to shut me up. But
Okay.
it was a very intense it's 100 days. It's like a sales cycle. It goes for 100 days, the due diligence, the whole transaction, as they like to call it. And you're trying to run a business at the same time, and you're over in a foreign country, and you've got, we actually, our biggest client at the time was up for tender, so we had to go through that. So there were just so many balls in the air. So it was like walking a tightrope. And you on the one hand, you've got to be totally genuine during the process, but at the same time, you've got to keep your guard up as well, if that makes sense. Like,
yes.
You've got to, you're selling your business to the potential buyers, so you're certainly not lying or gilding the lily, but at the same time, you've got to be consistent. And it's an interesting it's an interesting psychological process to go through. But it's a big sale process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was right on time, because it was just before COVID, wasn't it? And then you came home. What great timing.
It was mid 2019. Yeah, so it would have been ugly if it was happening during COVID. And then of course COVID hits and everyone thinks the world's going to end. But then within 3 months, it was like, oh, hang on, this is actually pretty good. If you're running a software as a service company, you wouldn't have had to fly to America at all. I could have just stayed here, just sat in my pajamas and run the business from here. But
you could have, exactly. You could have. But you didn't. And the other thing that you didn't do was you didn't just sit back and go, well, job done, that's a really big bucket list item ticked off for me. You then looked around and thought, I've got another business in me. And you've gone forward into SalesGRID. So do you want to talk us through what SalesGRID actually is and how it uses AI? Because we're a couple of years in now, and AI was just sort of peeking its head into some of those spaces, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, having run Performio, for me there was a clear problem, challenge for the salespeople in B2B, particularly complex deals, where you've got a couple of key things. One, how do you guide your buyer through the sales process in a consistent, repeatable way? And one, do we actually have a good sales process that's aligned to our customers' buying process? That's the first thing. And secondly, do we have the right content, information, micro content, et cetera, to share with the customer to help them guide them through the process? So SalesGRID was it's effectively a sales enablement platform that we started building actually 3 years ago now. And as you say, AI comes on the scene and we go, oh my God, this totally changes everything, because what AI can do and what it is doing is it almost it's got the potential to remove the software interface from the whole scene. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is build this virtual teammate that kind of like sits on your shoulder or in your ear or whatever, that actually guides you and helps you through the process. So it's very much an assistant. It's not an executive. It's not doing the job for you. It's actually it's helping you at every step in the process. And so it knows, the amazing thing about this tech is that it can memorize everything about your business or your brochureware or your sales support info. So it knows everything about the business, it knows everything about your process and methodology, the way it should be. And even better, it then memorizes everything on the deal you're working on. So it sucks in all the transcripts, emails, content you've shared. So it knows everything that's going on. So you can imagine that, right? You've just come out of a 2-hour discovery meeting with a customer. There are 6 people in the meeting. There's like thousands of words that have been spoken. You normally go and write that down, or you've written some notes during the meeting. Well, this is all now recorded. And so you can then say, hey, Savvy, the name of the chatbots we call is Savvy. Savvy, can you just give me a discovery report from that meeting? And by the way, also include all the other stuff that was said before the meeting. So it's now giving you this first draft, plus an email meeting wrap as well. It's giving you a really good first draft, which you can then just read and edit. As an executive, you then go, okay, how do I need to tighten this up? How do I, da-da-da. And so you're spending your time on the high value part. You're not having to spend your time, let's face it, wasting your time procrastinating. Oh my God, I've got to write that discovery summary. You're not wasting your time having to start from scratch. You're actually bringing your experience and skill to really polishing it from being good to awesome. That's what I mean by, it's actually helping you be awesome on the deal at every step, every deal. Like, I think sometimes we're awesome, you know what I mean? Like, we can be awesome at certain times, but there's only so many times we can be awesome. Because sometimes you just got to take a breather and, it's too much. Whereas AI, I think, can really help be that companion that can actually just, it's ultimately a productivity tool.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to delve into that a little bit more. So first of all, when you say complex deals, can you just help us understand what your definition of a complex deal is? And then you talked about aligning the sales process with the customer's buying process.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess just simply for me, complex deal, I mean, it's, typically it's a deal value of, it's upwards beyond, say, $50,000. It's just throwing numbers out there. Often 6-figure, 7-figure deals. So there's a lot at stake.
Yep.
And typically you've got this concept of buying groups. You're seeing more and more now on the customer side. It's not just one decision. Forget this stuff about decision makers, right? You've got a committee-based decision going on. Sure, there's an economic buyer ultimately will sign the contract or whatever, but you've got you've got this group of people, quite often 10, 15 people on that site. So that adds complexity as well. And you typically, complex sales cycle, if you're lucky, it closes in 3-4 months. It's typically, in fact, if it looks like it's going to close quicker, that's just a red flag that this ain't happening. It's typically 3, 6, 12-month deals, right?
Yeah.
This is part of the thing again, quite often some of these deals, let's face it, despite best efforts, they might go dormant or quiet for a while. Then you come back into it and you go, okay, where are we at with that? Again, Savvy can go, hey, this is where we got to. And so it never forgets. It never, ever forgets. So it's pretty cool.
That's incredible. So taking all of that, how you said that it enables you to focus on the higher value activities.
Yeah.
What are those higher value activities, and what does that sort of indicate that the future of selling skills, or especially in the B2B world, what's the direction around that for if I was, let's just say, we have to use our imaginations. Let's just say I was in my mid-30s and I'm in the middle of my sales career and I'm looking at the next 10 years. What are some of those skills that I'd probably need to start to cultivate and become exceptional at, knowing that AI is it's not going anywhere, and it's going to alleviate a lot of the grunt work, and therefore, where is my value now, and how do I continue to bring value?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think there's two ways to look at that.
Yeah.
I think firstly, on the one hand, it doesn't change anything, right? All the skills you need to be successful, there's still negotiation, influencing, the way you run a meeting on Zoom or Teams, the way you write email, all that stuff, the way you can do an outbound phone call, all that stuff is unchanged. It just because it's a productivity game changer, it means you've got more time to be doing selling stuff and not doing admin stuff. So that'd be the first thing. I'll give you a good example. Right? We're working with a company where they've actually got a problem where they've got too many inbound leads, which is a nice problem to have. But
yeah, nice.
A lot of low quality inbound, too many for the salespeople to follow up. And so what's happening is that they'll leave voicemails, or a lot of people just go untouched, and you're losing a lot. You're leaking a lot of inbound, right? What AI can do, can actually engage these leads, these actual people, when they actually hit the website or social media or whatever, and actually engage them in a conversation so they can get more information about the customer, but the customer can get more information about the product, right? And so therefore you're getting a much better lead score. So now the salespeople have actually got a much better focus on where they spend their time. So that's just an example of it's making them more effective. They can do more high value stuff, i.e. talking to a real customer,
yeah.
rather than doing stuff where they're just leaving voicemails and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So so it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to learn some crazy new skills, but the second point there is the fact that the second thing is you are going to need to learn the importance of how you interact with AI. That you actually, it's not a software. You don't just type in keywords into. It's not like software, right? You've actually got, for AI, you've got to treat it like a human. You've actually got to go, okay, I'm going to give you a brief now for what I need. Right. So a skill you have to develop is how you brief the AI to get what you need out. So that's kind of a technical skill you need.
Yes.
But I think also, I just think there's this idea that, and we've seen this the last 20 years, where they call it disintermediation of the sale process, in the sense that low value, low complex products and services have been taken over by the internet, e-commerce, digital,
yep.
right? And so there have been a lot of jobs lost at that bottom end, if that makes sense. And that's AI is just going to accelerate that.
Yes.
But on the other side, things are getting more and more complex. So salespeople, account execs, what do you want to call them, right? They have to become more and more sophisticated. They're becoming more, it's putting more and more E into the word executive. And so you have to develop your executive skills. You have to be more and more comfortable dealing with executives on the customer side. You have to know what a business case is, right? You need to know how to write a business case. So when your friendly virtual teammate gives you the draft, you need to know how to critique that and then edit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Whereas, yes, I think it's a fantastic opportunity where things are heading, but it's going to be more, moving further and further up the value chain.
Well, it's one of the bugbears of a lot of account executives, isn't it? The admin side. I mean, you ask any salesperson, what parts they love, and they'll always say, "I love being in front of a customer. I love getting a deal. I love the interaction. I love when I win. I love all of that stuff." The bit that they say slows them down is the admin, and so this is really taking a lot of that stuff away from them so that they can focus more on the things that they love. But it's a different orientation to how they. I'm not saying that they're not using those skills now, they are, but you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that they need to really ratchet those skills up a different notch, and then also integrate those skills into briefing savvy in this case, but any AI, in a way that's going to enable that to help them even further.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely. And we talk a lot about, people hate admin. What do we actually mean by admin? People hate data entry. We know that.
Yeah, they do.
CRMs. To me, admin is also admin. It depends how you define it. But for me, you come out of a great meeting and you're busy. You've got another meeting coming up soon, and part of admin is going, I need to write a professional meeting wrap to that customer, make sure they get it within 24 hours, and it's da-da-da. And that's where I think, again, where this tech can be really helpful, not to do it for you, but to help save a lot of time, so you can just focus on how you polish that final note and edit it. So,
Yeah, that's extraordinary. So if I'm a sales leader, I'm either a sales director, I'm a GM of sales, I'm a national sales manager. What are some of the things that I could be looking out for to really enhance the performance of my sales team when it comes to choosing, the right AI for my business? And, am I limited by the current software that I've got? Or, how does all of that work, and how do they navigate that land?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, be asking them to consider what we're doing here, but that goes without saying. But I think, if I were ignorant about the incredible work we're doing here at SalesGRID, naturally you look to your existing sales tech stack. And look, there's a lot going on. Like if you're using Salesforce, they've got Einstein. They're trying to do a lot with that. If you're a Microsoft house, Copilot's come out now, but that's sort of generic. It's not sales specific. But like the first to answer your question, firstly, I'd say you need to be dipping your toe in the water. If you're not, if you're waiting, sitting back, I think that's a huge mistake. You've got to get on the front foot with this tech, because the reality is most of your salespeople are using it, right? They're using ChatGPT, they're mucking around, but the real power is actually getting the AI to work on your private stuff, not just what's publicly available. So yes, I would advise. We're 18 months into this journey now, and I'll be first looking at my existing tech stack and asking vendors, what they've got to offer to help the team. And if you're not satisfied with that, I'd be looking elsewhere.
Yeah. So when we look at the kind of market situation we've got at the moment, where efficiencies are really badly sought because businesses, have higher costs than ever. The cost of talent certainly hasn't gone down. That might change. It might stabilise and kind of right-size soon. We're starting to see employment rates, beginning to fall to kind of normalised levels where there's, kind of a bit of balancing out in the economy. That said, when you're looking across your talent pool, your resource pool, and you're trying to get more out of the resources that you have, both people and software or tech, I'm imagining that, there's a couple of things that would come into play right now. And that is, how do I get more reach? How do I get deals across the line faster? So how do I reduce sales cycles? How do I maximise my conversion rates? And how do I capture more? So you talked earlier about, not burning money that a lot of businesses do in generating leads. They're not falling out. They're not being missed. We're capturing all of them. And not only that, we're getting more intel about the quality of those so that my team knows exactly what that starting point might be to start to nurture a relationship through the sales pipeline. So there's that. But how do you even navigate that part? Because for you, you're in this, you're immersed in it, you're developing SalesGRID. So all of this stuff for you, I would imagine, is so obvious. But let me tell you, the businesses that I work with, they might have HubSpot, they might have Salesforce and use a little bit of, they use Power BI and they use, other things to kind of enhance their reporting, but they're not necessarily really utilising AI in a way that you're describing. And if they could do those things, shorten sales cycles, improve conversion rates and capture opportunity, I think that would be, three of the key areas that they'd really find advantageous.
Yeah, so where should they start?
Where should they start? And what are some, maybe what's more helpful is, what are some of the questions that they either need to ask themselves or ask when they're considering the types of solutions, such as SalesGRID, to start to look at for the application for their own businesses?
Yeah. I mean, a simple place to start is if you look at your existing sales process and the team you got in place, and review your deals over the last 12 months and go, okay, where are we winning deals, where are we losing, where's most of the time going, and actually try and identify some use cases where you can put AI to work.
Okay.
So, like I'm talking about, I was talking before about this idea of a virtual team out on your shoulder, and there's this vision for where we're taking this tech. But in the here and now, you want to pick out some, the low-hanging fruit of where AI can be really effective.
Yes.
One example is, so for example, you might have a team that's just slammed at the moment and you're getting multiple requests for proposals come in, right? And they're just sucking up a lot of time and energy. It's a great place where AI, it's not glamorous, but can just go in and actually reduce the amount of effort and energy that you put into that part of the sales process, by an order of magnitude. And so that frees up people time and energy to work on other parts in the process. So that's a good use case.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of activity at the top of the funnel with AI around, even Salesforce are talking about, they've got this sales agent they're trying to trial. It's actually having AI agents that actually do outbound and inbound qualification. That's still, it's an interesting one. That's still, in my opinion, there's a lot of hype around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be focusing just purely looking at, what are the really hot points in your process. A lot of sales managers I talk to, and I don't want to sound snarky about this, but they will say that they actually don't trust the quality of what their salespeople are putting out there, right? In terms of written communication, proposal communication. They feel like a lot of just for whatever reason, writing skills are really poor, right? Which you would surprising, but so that's a great use case for AI to actually, just give your team access to a private chatbot that they can actually use in Gmail or in Outlook to actually just help them write more consistently, more on brand. And that's going to just improve the way they communicate with having more consistent communication.
Well, I'd really appreciate what you've said so far. So really looking at and examining where the bottlenecks are, or where all of your time's getting sort of absorbed or sucked up in the process to start with, and then going, okay, so we've got a problem here. What could we be doing differently in order to fix that? And then you talked about that written element with either sales proposals or written communications. That's an obvious one, and I mean, that's an indictment, isn't it, on so many things. Whole other conversation about education system, but I mean, that's the reality. So yeah, that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, so it's about, with all these things of tech, it's about being pragmatic and focusing on a few things first and then building from there. I mean, I don't know about you, but I imagine some of the customers you talk to, they don't actually have a very well-defined sales process, or it's very vendor-centric. It's not actually designed with the customer in mind. So, I'd be focusing on that. And funnily enough, you shouldn't have to, but you can actually use AI to help with this as well. It's actually pretty good at actually, giving you a pretty solid process of how it should be, and you can kind of do a gap analysis against what you've got currently.
I think that's possibly one of the most helpful things that I've heard so far. That's very exciting to someone like me, is using AI to help you have a far more customer-focused sales process, so that it goes right back to something that you talked about at the start, which is aligning our sales process to the way that customers buy. And I think where there's less friction there, that's what we're always going for in sales. I mean, that dictates that answers the other questions that I had, which is around shorter sales cycles, improved conversion rates.
Look, let's bring it back to the customer. When we talk about improving conversion rates, and it feels very much coming from the vendor, but if we think about what is going to make the customer more likely to buy? If we're talking about a complex deal, in my experience, which is only just my experience, but certainly what is incredibly important, if you look at the key stages in your process, take discovery, gathering requirements. It drives customers mad that vendors don't fully understand their requirements, that they don't properly document their requirements, that they're not able to clearly articulate their requirements, and finally, they're not able to connect their requirements to the vendor's unique capabilities. And that is a crucial area where AI can help in a number of ways. One, because it knows everything, or memorize everything, it can actually help the AE, the salesperson, properly document and articulate. And then because you've got all the information in your library, you can then connect it to all your features and benefits today. So you can just better communicate with the customer, which helps the customer make a decision and move forward.
That's amazing. I have no doubt we're going to to pull some of that information out and put that on a tile somewhere, because that was magnificent. So, how optimistic are you about the customer focus by using AI? How is that going to improve what's been pretty transactional for the last 20 years, in my experience, particularly in B2B sales, where, you know, as long as you were a nice enough person, you turned up, you know, you did the hours, you put the footwork in, you were probably going to hit your targets. But it created a plethora in the market of these transactional, really shallow leveled, skilled salespeople. So what I'm hearing here is that this could really transform the way that customers are made to feel if we do it well.
Yeah, I think, it's funny, I'm building this business and doing a lot of outreach, and I hear, a lot of pushback I get is, oh my God, I've had a lot of people say to me, I'm big on the relationship, David. I'm not interested in this AI stuff. Right. I'm going, okay, that's fair enough. Okay, got to accept the feedback. But I mean, for me, it's about this technology, like any productivity tool, it can actually help you invest more in the relationship, have more relationships, more connections, and more valuable. And relationship just doesn't mean, you get on well with the person. Right? It's about what value can you bring to that individual. Yes. So AI, it's just very simply, it's a virtual teammate that can help you be awesome. And so it can help you, therefore, add value at every step of the way. And adding value can just be simple things like super professional emails, micro content that's targeted and tailored to that customer, the discovery piece I was talking about. So I think, and even just that, it doesn't have to be rocket science. Just that example of what I was talking about, that customer with too many inbound leads, right? Just means that you're actually connecting, having relationships with people that actually want to talk to you, as opposed to doing a crapshoot and leaving 50 voicemails during the day trying to find what were those 3 customers that were really interested. Whereas
that's right.
If the AI can actually help do it won't be perfect, but if it can at least flesh it out a bit more.
100%. If you can bring those 3 to the top of your attention, and then have a ranking based on criteria. And I think that's also what I'm hearing here too, is that if everybody, let's just say we're 10 years in the future, everyone's got AI. And it's not going to matter really, my AI is better than your AI. The differentiator is actually, what I'm hearing, is going to be in the skill of the sales leader, the organisation, and the salespeople using that AI to put it to work in the best possible way, so that it is absolutely aligned with what the customer, what's going to be most of value to the customer, by enabling the people who are listening to listen even more intently, because it's capturing everything, not just through the filters of the human. It's going to capture absolutely everything, the things that we might miss, and parlay them back, so that and then capture those in a way that's expressed in line with the customer's communication style. I think there's just so much benefit to be had for our customers, which makes me very happy.
And there's a couple of things I got me thinking about, but one, just on that last point, it's not just about the vendor from the customer point of view. There's this whole potential, in 10 years' time, I'm pretty damn sure that this concept of digital sales rooms where the buyers can come in, so they can actually engage a lot in terms of getting the information they need and asking questions, rather than having to rely on the salesperson. But the salesperson's still going to be there as guiding the process, but and again, on more complex deals. But I actually just want to make the point that if you asked me, what makes what's common among successful salespeople, what are the tools that salespeople need to be successful? I'd actually say, I can't think of a single successful salesperson where I'd go, they were successful because they use this tool, they use Salesforce. It's actually not which is funny me saying this, given I'm building the sales tool, right? But what I would say, it's actually how they use it, and it's actually how you use the tool. So everyone uses Teams, everyone uses Zoom, right? It's actually how you use that tool to aid your sales process. It's important. It's going to be the same with AI. And as he so correctly pointed out, everyone's in 10 years' time, everyone's going to be using AI. The people that aren't lost their job a long time ago. So what's the differentiator is going to be the human skill that you bring to the relationship, the way you can use the tech to actually help you be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end our conversation today, Dave. And I'm just wondering, would you come back again? Because I think that there's so much more that we can probably unpack here with about SalesGRID in particular, and maybe really look at some of the applications, because I think that this is an emerging area, and I really want to demystify AI for the sales profession, so that we understand that it can actually enhance the level of connection that we can have with our customers.
Yeah, I'd love to. We could actually just talk about, here's some specific examples of how it's being used. Here's where it's not working yet, where, the hypey stuff.
That'd be great.
But what to actually expect. We could also talk about my travels to America and what I think of United Airlines, but that's another story.
Well, we can talk about that too. I'm more than happy to. But no, I really, really appreciate that. We will make sure that all links to SalesGRID are in the notes for this podcast. And is there anything else that we should go and have a look at, or is there something that people can subscribe to that you might have available?
Yeah, sure. If people have watched this and enjoyed the podcast, they can either reach out to me or drop a line on our website. We can give them access to a free account so they can actually play around with it. It won't cost you a thing. And there's heaps of stuff on the website to check out. But unlike your good self, Ingrid, I'm not doing my own podcast, or maybe I should. But,
yeah, maybe you should. Who knows? Yep. Look at you. All right then, Dave. Listen, thank you so much. Give my love to Dee and those beautiful children of yours, and I'll look forward to catching up for a coffee soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Ingrid.
Thank you. Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, please email me at ingrid@thesalesdoctor.com.au. Visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.